So today we're here to review the last of the current Transformers movies. As I talk about now, there's supposed to be a Bumblebee spin-off movie, and nobody can seem to determine whether there is a future for the franchise beyond that. They may be rebooting the franchise at some point after that. They may not be. Conflicting reports. Apparently, Hasbro said they would be. Now they're kind of backpedaling, thinking that if they announce that now, they probably won't get much traction off the Bumblebee movie, which is done, apparently, nearly done. So we're going to review the final film that they have currently out, which is Transformers The Last Knight, which, here's my copy of it. There's nothing here. There's nothing here because I don't own a copy of Transformers The Last Knight. It is the shittiest of all the movies that they've made, and I mean this on a level that is just ridiculous. I had previously enjoyed the first one, enjoyed the second one, started to not enjoy the third one, but it was serviceable, it was okay. The fourth one was just a fucking piece of shit. And I had absolutely no intention of going to see the fifth one, Transformers The Last Knight. It just looked beyond fucking terrible. Had no interest in really seeing it. The only reason I did actually end up going to see the movie in theaters is because my nephew, who I love, he's a good kid, he asked me if I was going to go see it, and I didn't have the heart to tell him no because he wanted to go see it. So I ended up taking him, first time ever I had taken him, me and him alone, to the movies to see a movie. Now, for his sake, I sat through it, I watched it, I pretended to care. The movie's just a piece of shit, to be honest with you. It continues on the characters, the newer characters we've seen in the last film. Cade Yeager, and his daughter just disappears again. She apparently is talked to slightly by phone at one point. He apparently has a huge, massive fucking junkyard now where Transformers hide out. And there's like little Dinobots, and none of it makes any fucking sense. As a Transformer that comes there and sells them scrap, and they try to repair things, and Autobots were still pretty much hunted and hated. And Optimus Prime has been out in space for a while, and frozen, and looking for... None of it fucking matters, realistically. None of it fucking matters. It all ties back to the same bullshit that these all movies do. There was some sort of thing in the past with Merlin and a staff, and oh god, who fucking cares at this point? There was so much shit in this movie that just was pointless. I have not bought it on DVD or Blu-ray. I don't fucking care. I might buy it if I see it like really fucking cheap, like a $5 bin or something at one point, just to put it in the collection already. But I have no real intention of actually seeking the film out and purchasing it on DVD. So that just gives you a clue to skip ahead as to, usually I try to save towards the end of my reviews, should you buy this or would you? But don't even fucking bother. Don't even fucking bother. I don't know if you've ever eaten something and it causes you to have such gas pains that you're doubled over in cramps, and those gas pains really aren't going to go away until you go into the bathroom and take a shit that comes out of you, pouring out of you at hyper pain speeds, as if someone had turned on a chocolate faucet where just liquid chocolate falls out of your asshole. And this will happen several times. Maybe I'm just the only person, or maybe I just have irritable bowel syndrome, or maybe that's exactly what Transformers The Last Knight is as a film. Because it's fucking terrible. It is so bad, it's one of these films where one of the things that they seem to revel in, which is, of course, seemingly Michael Bay's forte, is leveling in really lowbrow humor. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for lowbrow humor, man. I've seen all the Kevin Smith movies, and let me tell you something. That man revels in lowbrow humor. But at least it's the medium he's trying to deal in. He doesn't pretend to be somebody who is trying to make a massive summer spectacular blockbuster film. Kevin Smith is not making a movie where it's an action-adventure flick where It's a multi-million-dollar budget with computer-generated characters. He's not making that. He's making movies about people who talk about dick and fart jokes, and he does it very well. Michael Bay seemingly wants to do both. He wants to make a summer blockbuster and put in some sort of weird jokes about robots pissing on people or their testicles or putting characters in their underwear. And don't get me wrong, in some instances it kind of works and provides some levity and fun for the film. But after 5 of these films where it's the same fucking shit, you simply just don't care anymore. You can't care. It's hard to care. It's hard to care about characters and stories where you have a plot line in one film, and in the next film, the plot line from that previous film just doesn't fucking matter anymore. It's just a basic reset. Now, that might work for a series of films like the Resident Evil films, where essentially, even in the Resident Evil games, not that I play them, it's essentially you're just trying to get from one point to another, and what realistically happened in each previous game doesn't really affect what's going on. You're just killing zombies and moving from point A to point B, and that works fine for the Resident Evil movies, and I'll get to reviewing them one day. But on the most part, for the Resident Evil films, I was able to sit down and stomach those. I'm not a gamer, so I don't really give a fuck whether the gaming matched up with this. It was just an action-adventure film with zombies, and that's fine. But the Transformer films they're supposed to provide a little more entertainment. They're not just these simplistic films, or they shouldn't be these simplistic films. Transformers have had very involved stories throughout many incarnations of whatever you want to look at. Robots in Disguise, Transformers Generation 1, Beast Wars, the comic books. There's been many, they're intricate things. They shouldn't just be shoot 'em up, disposable characters, getting from point A to point B films. It's not a video game. They've made video games, but this isn't supposed to be a property based on video games. It worked for the Resident Evil films. It doesn't necessarily work for a Transformer film. But as a good example, getting back to the humor on this, for some bizarre reason, there seems to be this concept that Mark Wahlberg, who finds that he is the last knight, I don't know why, makes very little sense to me. I mean, there's plot that explains it, but it's such a fucking boring plot and such a ridiculous thing that you don't give a shit. But one of the things that they're supposedly saying, they take this bizarre sense of humor in, is the saying that Mark Wahlberg is a virgin. The character has to be virginal. You know, he has to be pure, is what I'm looking for. And it's just a fucking ridiculousness, because talk about just plots not needing to make any sense. They just don't give a fuck anymore. And this is what the case of this movie is. We previously established in the film before, he has a fucking daughter. He has a child who is a teenager now. But the concept is they're saying that basically because he hasn't had sex in such a long time, he somehow is pure again. And this is a plot point that not only just is part of the goddamn story, it keeps coming back as a continuing joke throughout the whole movie. Why is there a plot point in a fucking action-adventure movie that's a continuingly bad joke that continues to go through the whole plot of the goddamn film and actually be important to the story about him not getting laid and being a born-again virgin? I don't understand any of this. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand it, but that's the worst part, actually. I take that back. I understand it, but I understand it because it's such a shitty, cheap, crappy, ridiculous way to continue a plot and to continue attempting to make something of interest in this fucking film. Now, this film also stops and takes the point of making Optimus for no apparent reason. Now, don't get me wrong, in any incarnation of the Transformers, there's always been a version of Optimus that has somehow turned evil. It's an old plot device. I think a lot of TV shows have done it. A lot of TV shows, cartoons. It's not something new. Definitely not something new. And this took no difference in it too. But I think what they saw in this was they thought the concept is Bumblebee's our guy. Bumblebee is the guy we want to push. Bumblebee is the movie we're going to be making next. We're going to spin Bumblebee out of the Transformer movies and make a Bumblebee a Bumblebee-centered film around this. So they took the time to change Optimus Prime into a bad guy, which is just essentially very little difference. I think his eye color changes. And there's a big fight at the end, and there's new characters, new Transformers, this robot named Squeaks, and they made a big fucking deal about this character, Squeaks. He's like a motor scooter, and which, by the way, there hasn't been a good Transformer motor scooter at all, ever. I mean, honestly, I think the concept of a transforming motor scooter was probably ruined when you go back to the GoBots, Challenge of the GoBots, and you had Scooter, which could be possibly one of the more annoying characters ever. Squeaks pretty much does the same thing. By the way, there's also a new younger girl who is friends with Squeaks, and oh god, I am just all over the place because I haven't seen the movie since I saw it in theaters, and when I saw it in theaters, I fucking hated it. It was like, I sat there like George C. Scott watching his daughter in the movie Hardcore, when he finally gets to see his daughter up on the big screen performing porn, and he's grabbing the front of the seat going, "Turn it off! Turn it off! Turn it off!" That's how I sat there in this movie. I bit my lip trying to make it through this film. And now I'm a hardcore fan, man. I'm a guy who sat here and basically I enjoyed the first couple of movies. So for me to sit here and tell you that this movie was such a fucking shithole of a mess that I couldn't wait for the damn movie to be over. I wish I could have found a way to bring the 1986 animated movie to the theater and have them play that for my nephew and let him watch that instead, because as bad or as corny or as cheesy or as incomplete or as ridiculously 80s as that cartoon was, it still is a better fucking story than this movie. There's also the subplot throughout the whole movie that there's horns growing out of Earth, which is, again, they're trying to reach out to the old Transformers Generation 1 fan base and include a Unicron reference in there. And that's what they're basically doing. They're trying to set up the next movie, which would have been Unicron. As I understand it, the movie has been canceled. They're not planning on making another movie, continuing the Bayverse beyond the Bumblebee movie, which, at this point, thank God. I mean, thank whatever deity you want to thank. Thank Satan, thank God, thank Flash Gordon. I don't give a shit. Go outside and thank your fucking trees. Thank the sun. Whatever you need to do, whatever you worship. Thank God they're not making another one of these fucking films, because it is ridiculously bad. We're going back to the character Squeaks, which they heavily promoted this character in fucking toys and made a big deal over it. He's in the movie for barely like 5 minutes, and he's a shitty fucking character to begin with. The younger girl in the movie, actually not a bad actress. I'll give her that much. I'm sure being in a major motion picture probably was something she had hoped to get. I don't know if she hoped to get Transformers: The Last Knight, because it was just a piece of crap. I mean, we're dealing with Merlin. We're dealing with a character called Cogman, who just... We had Hot Rod, who was French. I don't know why there was a concept of having a French Transformer in this. Overall, it's just... There's a phrase that went around that said Michael Bay raped my childhood when he made the first movie. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say that, because honestly, like I said, I liked the first movie, liked the second movie, liked the third movie to a degree. Didn't like the fourth movie, didn't like this one at all. Transformers: The Last Knight is just honestly one of the worst. It is the worst Transformer movie that they've made, and it is one of the worst movies I have had a chance of seeing in a long time. And I want you to understand, I'm a man who sits down and watches Mystery Science Theater 3000 on a regular basis, and they watch some bad fucking movies on there. And honestly, I have seen movies on Mystery Science Theater 3000 that are better than Transformers: The Last Knight. A Touch of Satan. You want to watch a bad movie that kind of had a good idea but kind of just didn't really have the cash or acting ability to go on? A Touch of Satan is actually not a bad film. It's actually a better film than Transformers: The Last Knight. Transformers: The Last Knight is literally a 2-hour orgy of movement and action and just recycled bad screenwriting and script writing. I recommend it to no one. I recommend it to no one in any way, shape, or form. Unless you really just need something to sit your child down in front of and watch for 2 hours, and in which case, really, just go have them watch one of the other films you probably already have on DVD or can get on DVD easily. I wouldn't spend more money on it. Like I said, I may end up buying it when it does come to like the $5 level on DVDs. Even then, it's going to be a hard sell for me. And I really can't stress what a giant pile of crap this film was. I really hope they are rebooting the franchise. I really hope they are going with something a little closer to what the Generation 1 Transformers was, or Beast Wars, or God, anything really, honestly, because I just can't, I can't sit through. I don't even know if the Bumblebee film, I don't even know if I'm going to sit through that. I probably will not end up going to see that in the theaters, unless my nephew wants to see that one as well. But honestly, it is one of the worst Transformer films, and one of the worst films I have ever seen in a very long time. And as a good example, critics crapped all over the movie Gem and the Holograms. Gem and the Holograms may have been a bad Gem and the Holograms movie, but it still wasn't a bad movie. It's actually a pretty decent film, just not a good adaptation for Gem and the Holograms. Transformers: The Last Knight is way worse in every way, shape, or form. So there's the review of Transformers: The Last Knight.